way? Pretty sure everyone can hear me. That was loud. Yep. Oh, thanks. Make sure my phone's on silent. Because my phone's blowing up because, I'm doing something. Right. All right, so we're going to get started. I hope everyone can hear me. It sounds very loud on this mic right now. So I'm going to give a short presentation on the merger that's really just covering a lot of the frequently asked questions that we have been getting. So hopefully we can answer a lot of your questions that you may have, and then we will open up the floor for questions from you guys. You didn't have to sign up to ask questions. There won't be a time limit on questions. But when we get to that, I do ask that everyone is respectful of everybody and respectful of everyone else's time so that everyone does have a chance to ask their questions. And if anyone else has questions that are related to something other than the merger, if we can just ask merger-related questions first, and then we can get to whatever questions that anybody may have. So we'll go ahead and get started. And just so you know, I feel like I've presented enough. Most people know who I am, but I am Sarah Fulton. I'm the Strategic Director for Pender County. With me, I have Assistant Chief Mark Haraway from Pender EMS and Fire. Meg Blue is our Interim County Manager and also our Finance Director. And then we do have Commissioner Groves, Commissioner Springer, and Commissioner George with us tonight. So I will be covering what emergency services looks like now, what is a merger, how did we get here, what this process has looked like so far and what it will look like going forward, how this is going to affect our first responders, and of course, what this means for you, the taxpayer. So emergency services right now is provided in a lot of different ways. So emergency 911, the dispatchers that answer the phone when you call 911. Emergency management that has been very active this week with our tropical weather. And our fire marshal's office are already county functions. The sheriff's office as well, when we look at law enforcement, the sheriff's office is a county function. Then we have our municipal police departments. We have the North Carolina Highway Patrol. So for fire and EMS, which is relevant to the merger conversation that we're having today. So EMS is provided by Pender EMS and Fire and also Union Rescue. Union Rescue has one station out there in Willard, and Pender EMS and Fire covers the rest of the EMS stations in the county. So for fire, we have quite a mix of service providers right now. So we have our municipal departments, so those are our towns. So Burgaw Fire Department, Surf City, Atkinson, Topsail Beach. Then we have our nonprofit fire departments. So those are Pender EMS and Fire, Maple Hill Fire, Penderley Fire, and Rocky Point Fire. And then North Carolina Forestry also provides service for our game lands and a lot of those wildfires. So our fire departments are, they're funded through fire tax. Each of our fire districts has a different tax rate. And then there's also a lot of departments that get general fund supplement in the regular budget process, so the annual budget process, because the fire tax no longer covers all of our fire services. EMS is covered with an EMS tax. That is a flat rate across the county that is 9 1/4 cents. Meg, want to make sure I said that correctly. And then the law enforcement with the sheriff's office and our other county functions are also part of the regular annual general fund budget. So a lot of people have asked, what is a merger? And then also a lot of people have asked, how did we get here? So a merger is two or more organizations that agree on a future shared vision and create one new organization. So in this case, that merger would be between Pender County, Pender EMS and Fire, Pender Lee Fire Department, and Maple Hill Fire Department, and they would all merge into one, and that would become the Pender County Emergency Services Department. So we got here, it's been, I know that a lot of people felt like this conversation was a surprise. A merger has been discussed, or maybe not the word merger, but fire being operated by the county has been discussed since about 2013, maybe even earlier, when the county asked for Pender EMS to take over some of the fire departments. So there's also been a transition from from an all-volunteer service in emergency services for both fire and EMS to more paid and career staffing. And that's due to a lot of different reasons. People move away from home more than they used to. They work away from home. They work in different counties. So they don't work nearby for their local fire department to be able to respond as a volunteer. A lot of employers are less likely to allow people to leave when there is a fire call. And so that's really led to a need to have full-time paid staffing, especially during the daytime hours when a lot of people are at work. There's also a lot of certifications and specialties now. Even in a traditionally rural county, we usually expect the same type of service that an urban area receives. Hazmat, heavy rescue, confined space rescue, search and rescue, swift water, all of those things require a lot of certifications and specialties. And it's very difficult for volunteers who dedicate their time already to dedicate that extra time to maintain those certifications. So all of these things have led to, but not just in Pender County, but statewide and nationwide, to having more paid and career staffing in a lot of departments. And so, as I mentioned on the last slide, the fire tax doesn't cover all of those services anymore. There's been a general fund supplement most years in the annual budget over, I'm not sure how many, since 2018, we've had a general fund supplement in the annual budget. So that means that part of the general fund budget is going still to cover fire and EMS services every year. And we will talk more about costs and budget at the end of this presentation when we get into what this means for you. But for the most part, all of the things that I just said have created a situation where the current model that we're using with all of these different departments operating separately and funded the way that they are is not sustainable when we look at the growth in Pender County, when we look at moving forward. All of our departments have done a fantastic job. We have wonderful first responders that dedicate their time and that are highly trained and have all kinds of certifications, and they dedicate their time to the people in Pender County. So, and then the conversation, like I said, it started 10 or more years ago, and it's come back up on a fairly regular basis every few years, and then this year just happened to be the year that we moved forward. So looking at the process of what does this look like as we go through this merger. So the important thing I want to point out is who's involved in making decisions. This is not just county staff making a plan. We have staff from each agency. So there are county staff. There are staff from Pender EMS and Fire, from Pender Lee, and from Maple Hill. North Carolina Fire Chief Consulting, we brought them on in, I believe it was May, to help guide those conversations. So North Carolina Fire Chief Consulting is made up of multiple staff with a lot of years of experience, and they have been involved in multiple mergers in North Carolina. So not necessarily one the size that we are doing, but they have been involved in other mergers. And then, of course, the boards for each of these agencies or departments have the final approving authority when we get into the final merger agreement that we'll be looking at in the spring. So the process, we agreed, you need to start with a shared vision when you're starting on a merger. So that's what that memorandum of understanding was that was approved at the first meeting in September. And that outlined the general plan for all of the departments moving forward, that we were going to create one department that's the full-time paid staff and part-time paid staff would become employees of the county, and that we wanted to retain volunteers, that we wanted to maintain ISO ratings. All of those things that were in that MOU, if you didn't take the time to read it or at least listen to the presentation from, I believe it was September 2nd, I encourage you to do so. A lot of those things are outlined in that document. And so now our work group that we have set up with all of those staff from all those different departments are working on task lists. And that includes things from HR, including personnel, benefits, payroll, finance. There's all kinds of insurance that needs to be moved over, deeds, titles, leases. There's a lot of IT involved in this, making sure the right people have access, changing the timekeeping software to work better for shift work. Facilities and fleet, there's a lot of fleet replacement schedules, maintenance, things that need to be done. And then, of course, all of our fire, our EMS operations, special operations, volunteers. So there's task lists and work groups for each one of these sections. And those work groups are starting to work through these task lists, setting due dates on when do each one of these things need to be done, and what is it going to take to work through those things. How much time is it going to take for staff to work through those things? And then that's working towards the final merger agreement in the spring. And I'm going to get to a timeline, I believe, on the next slide. But that final merger agreement, that's the final legal agreement that lays out all of the things in that legal format of property moving over and things such as that. And then, of course, we have implementation. So July 1, 2026 is the goal date for staff to become county employees and for assets to become county owned. But the merger doesn't end on July 1. There's a lot of things that go on past that. We'll be looking at doing a long-range plan, whether you want to call it a strategic plan, a business plan, whatever it is that you want to call it, but for stations and staffing and training and communications moving forward. And then also having ongoing public safety meetings to make sure that our responses are as smooth as possible and that our first responders have all of the tools that they need to provide the high level of service that they have been providing. So just looking at that timeline, so as I mentioned, we approved that memorandum of understanding in September. We're starting our town hall meetings now. This is the first one. We will have 4 more into the first 2 weeks of October. We're working on those task list items, and those will be going straight up until June of next year. We'll have some staff town hall meetings in November and December, and those are for the staff of Pender EMS and Fire so that they can ask directly the questions that relate to their benefits, that relate to any of the things that they have concerns about. So we've been communicating through Pender EMS and Fire's administration. But it's important that just as we are here tonight so that you guys can ask questions, that we give staff the opportunity to ask questions as well, raise concerns, provide suggestions. So in the spring, we're looking at having that final merger agreement, but we also want to have another round of town halls to let you guys know what is in that final merger agreement, and so that you can see that before it is voted on. July 1 of 2026, we'll have staff, as I said, will become county employees, and then all of the assets will become county owned. And then moving into 26 and 27, there's a lot of post-merger items, such as the long-term plan that I mentioned, but also the departments will still have to send out their W-2s for the end of the year and all of those fun legal and financial closeout things. So a lot of people have asked how this is going to affect the first responders that are providing service right now. So that includes the full-time paid staff, but also the volunteers. So for Pender EMS and Fire staff, and I say Pender EMS and Fire staff because those are the only full-time paid career staff that we have. So they will become county employees. The pay ranges, we've been working with Pender EMS and Fire's administration to determine what appropriate pay levels are. We want to make sure we're competitive with the counties and departments around us. Same thing with the benefits. We want to make sure that we're providing those competitive pay and benefits. We're looking at providing longevity for the years of service, because if someone has been working for Pender EMS and Fire for 20 years, they've essentially been providing service to Pender County for 20 years. So we provide longevity pay for our own employees, and we'd be looking to do that for our new employees as well. On the volunteer side, we want to keep all of the qualified volunteers that we have, both for fire and EMS. What we are working on is determining the incentives. So a lot of different departments do different things for their volunteers. Some just show up at the volunteer meetings and that's it. Some of them might pay for, there's a retirement pension for volunteer firefighters. Some of them will pay the dues for associations. There's a lot of different things, and pretty much all the departments in our area do different things, and we need to decide what that is, what that's going to look like for the county so that all of our volunteers are treated the same. All right. So, again, one of the most frequent questions we get is, how does this affect you, the taxpayer? So there's a lot of questions that we get. One is, will my ISO rating change? ISO is your insurance rating, and it affects, partially affects your homeowner's insurance, and it's based on a lot of things at the fire department, based on training, apparatus, how far the fire department is from you, and all of those. So we have met with the North Carolina Office of the State Fire Marshal to discuss those ISO ratings. That is the department that does the ISO inspections. They do not expect changes to the ISO ratings because we are not changing the service delivery model. So we're not shutting down stations. We're not reducing staffing. We're not reducing the number of trucks. We're not reducing any of the services. And so therefore, because we're not changing the service delivery model, we don't intend to change the service delivery model, they do not expect changes in those districts. Another question that we frequently have been getting is, will there still be a fire truck or an ambulance at the station near me? We have no intentions of changing any of the stations, any of the responses coming out of those stations. So if there is a fire department across the street from you and there's a fire truck that goes out of there at 2 o'clock in the morning and wakes you up, it is still going to be going out from across your house at 2 o'clock in the morning and waking you up. We don't have any intentions of changing any of the stations right now. Another question that we've been getting is, what will service delivery look like post-merger? So there's a lot of different structures and such that we can do. And what we are looking at is an emergency services department. So that is one large department that includes fire, EMS, emergency management, and then there'll also be like field communications, logistics for emergency services. That is one way to structure it, and that means that there is an emergency services director that actually has a background in emergency services that is able to supervise each one of those divisions. So those divisions will still be doing their thing. Fire is going to be doing fire, EMS is going to be doing EMS, emergency management will still be doing emergency management, but they will report to a director that has a background in public safety or emergency services. So looking at how information will be shared moving forward. So I have been providing fairly regular updates at board meetings. I will continue to do that as we go through this process. I'll try not to bore everyone with updates that are too frequent if there's really nothing changing, but we will try to provide regular updates there. We also have a web page that we've created for the merger. It is on the Pender County's website. It's under Government. And when you look at the drop-down menu, it says Emergency Services Merger. And just as a plug for the strategic plan, there's also one for the strategic plan. And so you can go there. There's frequently asked questions. Pretty much I've covered most of those frequently asked questions already. We will get to the costs in a minute. But as we get more questions, if there's a lot of questions that come up tonight or in the rest of the town halls, I will add those to that web page so that those frequently asked questions are there. And then, of course, social media and news for any big updates, big changes, anything that it seems like people would want to hear. So the last question, and probably the most frequent that we get, is something related to, what is this going to cost, or how is this going to affect my taxes? So when we look at the costs, when I presented the preliminary plan back in June, we presented some costs. So these are just the updated costs from that. So the largest increase, and there's a summary on the next slide, so if you can't read this, the font wouldn't get but so big and fit all on one slide. The biggest increase for the annual recurring costs is the staff piece of it, with salary and benefits. There's a little bit of a $300,000 increase in salaries per year and a $1.5 million increase in retirement and benefits. And the primary reason for that is the local government retirement system, which requires us to contribute with 14 point something, almost 15% to the local government retirement system. So that is the biggest increase, is the actual benefits that employees will be getting. The benefit cost for employees is less out of their pocket, but it will cost a little bit more on our side. As far as debts and liabilities, so the debts that will be assumed are just under $15 million, and it's important to note that these are already paid in the annual budget. So any debt service that is paid on this is already being paid out of our annual budget because we already provide funding to all of our departments each year, our fire and EMS departments. And when you look at the assets that are acquired through this minus the debt, the assets are almost $1 million more than the debt. So that does offset that on the books. So this number here for that debt does not add any new debt service to the county because that is debt that is technically already being paid. When it comes to asset costs, there are some IT costs. Now, these are higher cost. This is an estimate on if we have to replace all of the network equipment in every single station, which is probably not the case, but that is the cost estimate that is here. So it should be lower than this. But again, it was easier to estimate if we have to replace every single piece of network equipment at one time. And then the recurring per year, there's network costs, software licensing, connectivity, changing the timekeeping software. And some of this will be offset by the departments won't be having to pay their licensing costs. So again, this is what the total, that $250,000, that is the cost per year that we would be spending on those IT costs, but that will also come with reduced cost because the departments will not be having to pay their own. As far as operational costs, there's no additional operational costs because we are already paying for fire, EMS, special operations, training. All of these things are already paid for in the annual budget. For legal costs, there are some one-time costs. That's the NC Fire Chief Consulting that I mentioned that is helping guide our process. That was a $50,000 through this whole process. And then switching all the deeds and titles over. There's a lot of deeds and titles involved in this. And this, again, is a high estimate. And then the capital costs. So one of the largest costs that was listed on the preliminary plan in June was a new fleet garage. So it's important to note that the county needed a new fleet garage and had already identified that our own fleet garage is insufficient for our current fleet. Penner EMS and Fire also needed a fleet garage because what they are using is insufficient for the emergency service vehicles. And the schools also need a new garage because what they are using is insufficient and they cannot fit all of their equipment inside. So as opposed to 3 separate capital expenditures and 3 separate garages, this would be one garage that would be shared by all 3 organizations. So over here on the summary slide, the additional recurring annual costs, because I know that was a lot of text on that last screen. The additional recurring costs is about $2.1 million. So that is the amount that would actually be recurring in the annual budget. That is more than what we are paying now each year. And the one-time cost, we'd have about $195,000, the one-time cost, and then the fleet garage, which is an estimate of about $15 million, but it could also be less than that. So I do believe Ms. Blue wanted to talk about how that affects the tax rate, because if I tried to explain that, y'all wouldn't understand it because I don't do taxes. So I'm going to let Ms. Blue talk about how these type of costs could affect I've talked too much tonight, I'm sorry, how it would affect the tax rate, and then she'll hand it back over to me and we will start with questions.
Good evening. I guess you can all hear me. So currently, like Sarah said, the fire tax generates a little over $7 million. In addition to that, the general fund contributes about $7.5 million. So total, that's $14.5 million that goes to fire service. And then there's an additional 9.5 that is generated by the EMS tax that funds EMS. So currently, one of the reasons for this conversation to come up, it comes up every year during budget because the fire tax is not paying for fire. It hasn't in many years. And several years ago, when a lot of first responders got salary increases, that number jumped up astronomically from what it used to be. So we've always been looking at, but this is a really big effort to correct that issue because the fire tax is meant to fund volunteer fire departments. And when you start paying people, which is any organization's largest expense, to show up to work every day, your costs more than double. So what we're trying to do is figure out the best way to fund this. There are several options as far as the tax rate structure goes. And we've looked into all of them, and I've done the math on what that looks like for an individual tax bill. I've got all kinds of spreadsheets, which if I put up there, nobody would be able to see, but I'm happy to explain. But it all starts with the valuation, which everyone knows, or you may or may not know, we're going through a reval currently. Next year will be the first year of implementing this reval, meaning everyone's values are being reassessed by the tax office and a contractor of the tax office so that we can basically move tax values closer to fair market value. That's the whole point of a reval. Once we do that, within the budget, we will have to calculate a revenue neutral rate. This is required by state statute, and we will do that accordingly. But what will end up happening is inherently, even if none of this were happening, your tax rate is going to come down. Because revenue neutral would require that if your tax values go up, that your tax rate would come down. So what I've done is a lot of math, and I won't throw out numbers right this second as far as what a tax rate will look like, because again, it will depend on the reval. However, if there wasn't a reval, we have figured out several different options of how to fund this that would maintain and or potentially decrease the overall effective tax rate for Pender County. Like I said, there are a lot of factors that will go into it, so I'm not going to throw out a number, but we do have options that allow us to maintain our tax rate. Like Sarah said, there's an increase of $2.1 million. 1 penny of our current tax rate is about $1 million. So if you want to do the equivalent, it would be roughly 2 cents on our tax rate is what the additional will cost. However, again, with the growth that Pender County has seen and the changes in values, that tax rate will come down. So I just wanted to be very clear about that and explain that part of the reason that this conversation comes up so often is because of that funding mechanism and how the general fund is having to contribute so much general fund money in order to support these fire departments. What it would look like if they became one all-inclusive tax rate is that the individual departments would show up to a departmental budget meeting just like all the rest of our departments do, and the commissioners would be able to decide at that point what is a budget priority for them and what we need to fund and what that dollar amount looks like, and can allocate it accordingly to the need versus allocating it accordingly to what the tax rate generates, because a penny in one district does not generate the same thing as a penny in another. So we're trying to do that very careful balancing act. The spreadsheets are enormous, but I think they're pretty straightforward. And once we have that all nailed down, especially during the budget process for next year, and we have our reval valuations, I will plaster it up everywhere so that everyone can follow along, and we can ask our questions as we have them. Oh, and Sarah reminded me, we are also going to have some spring town halls so that once more of this information as we go through is vetted, we can address additional questions then, provide more concrete answers as far as specific dollars and what that tax rate might actually look like going forward.
So that is the end of the presentation. Again, the presentation was just to try to go ahead and cover most of the frequently asked questions that we've been getting. So we are going to turn it over for questions. We do ask, just as we do at board meetings, that everyone is respectful. We are here to answer your questions the best that we can. We may not have every single answer at this point, as we are still working through the process. We want to remind people we cannot talk about specific personnel items, and we are not going to set a timer for people to ask questions, but please, we do ask that you're respectful of everyone else's time, so that everyone that has a question can ask a question. And we do ask that if you have a question that is not related to the merger, if we could try to go ahead and stay on the merger track here for a minute. And then if we have no more questions related to the merger, we can cover whatever questions people may have. So if you want to ask a question, you can come on. If you're, we are streaming this, so if you could come up to the podium, because otherwise no one's going to be able to hear you. So do we have, you can come on up.
So I'm just wanting to get clear, can you provide a full projected cost estimate for the merger? One time and recurring.
Yes, this is our cost estimate at this time. Is additional
Where's the total?
the okay. So the current, if you add the 2.1 million
Yeah.
to the total 23.98 million, that would be the total of how much that's going to cost.
28.9 million. And that is one time and reoccurring? Or
That would be the recurring costs.
recurring?
The one-time costs are going to be the 195, and
Uh-huh.
then the potentially the $15 million that we estimate for the garage,
Okay.
which again is needed for the county and the schools as well. So it's not entirely attributable to this merger.
Okay. And did commissioners vote on this plan before having these numbers or after having these numbers?
We had some very rough estimates to begin with,
Mhm.
and these are the updated, more accurate numbers based on what we have right now.
Okay.
And we will continue to fine tune these as we go.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else have a question?
Did you want our names or anything like that? Are we good to go? Okay. So my question is about emergency funding. So I think the county policy mandates that we have like an unassigned fund balance that's greater or equal to than 20% of the general fund expenditures. So my question is, given that policy and the current fund balance, and I just got this, off the internet, so I'm sure it's true, is 63,186,000, something like that, or 75% of the general fund expenditures. So given the policy and the current fund balance, how will the board allocate funds for the merger without compromising the financial stability or the emergency reserves? So my point being, are we, with all of this, how are we placed if we have another Hurricane Florence?
That's a good question. The the policy requires 20%. That's our policy we require of ourselves.
Yep.
The local government commission requires 8%. If you're at 8%, they're coming to your door. So we require a higher policy because of those things, right? Because we could encounter things that will require large capital outlay all at once unexpectedly. So what will happen is, as far as the math goes, their expenses will get added to the total of the general fund expenditures. But then so it could potentially lower that dollar amount, but it's not going to come near that 20%. And I don't have that math right in front of me, but I can do it, and we'll be glad to share it.
Okay, maybe that's something you can put on the question and
Yeah,
answer. Yeah,
absolutely.
That'd be awesome. All right, thank you so much.
Yes, good question. Thank you.
Does someone else have a question? Okay, good.
I have two, if that's okay. Okay. So news reports indicate the county moved to dissolve the EMS and Fire Board of Directors. Can you provide the official resolution, the meeting minutes, and the list of board members removed or replaced so that we can better understand the statutory and procedural basis for that action?
I do not have that sitting in front of me.
I
no, but
understand.
that is something that we could pull for sure. Can you repeat it so I make sure I write down all
Sure.
the things to pull?
So what we're asking is the official resolution, the meeting minutes, and the list of board members that were removed or replaced. And the purpose for this is so that we can better understand the procedural basis for this.
Our minutes are available on our website, but we
Okay.
will get it all together and put that information together so you can specifically follow it and
Very
put
good.
it on the webpage that's dedicated to this.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Second one, and then I'm done. Thank
fine.
you very much for allowing me to ask a second one. Could you please explain the specific qualifications, experience, or statutory authority that led the board to conclude, that led the board to this decision rather than prior EMS fire board members? Just concerned about the qualifications to make these decisions.
So first of all, fire and EMS is a statutory requirement of a county in any county in North Carolina. So it's our responsibility to provide the service one way or the other.
Yes.
Doesn't require that we do it in-house, which is why we've contracted it out in the past. As far as qualifications to run fire and EMS, those folks are already running fire and EMS, and they will, if they choose to continue to do so,
Okay.
once they become county employees. This is really, and I don't have to be the only one to answer the question, but this is really to make it a more uniform process and make it a more, what's the word? Yeah, a more tax rate sustainable funding mechanism, I guess is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
We're funding it currently. It's not something that we can't fund. It's just that the mechanism we're using to fund it just doesn't work anymore for a paid staffing situation.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to ask the two questions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Do we have some other questions?
My question is this. Pender EMS was looking for grant funding to provide for this maintenance building. And they were applying for a grant fund. Why now are we having to pay for something that could have been funded through grants?
So they were looking for grant funding for the garage. They did get funding for EMS Station 9, which is being built. But that doesn't mean that that grant specifically that they were looking for is available for nonprofits, but that doesn't mean that we cannot also apply for grants.
Okay, and I know it's been touted about bringing on them to as county employees and getting benefits. But believe me, my wife worked for the county for 13 years. Their benefits aren't up to par. She never took the insurance because my insurance was so much better than hers that she never took their insurance. So don't be touting benefits when it's not really there. Thank you.
And if I have misunderstood what a town hall meeting is, I apologize. But I also thought our commissioners would be able to respond. Is that correct? If I have, okay. I'm asking this to the Board of Commissioners, so I see 3 of you here. And I will let you know that I did mention this earlier before Commissioner Tate had to leave. So here's my question. Did the Board of Commissioners meet with the Pender EMS and Fire Board before moving forward toward a consolidation? And the second part of that is, if you did, could you give me or someone give me a date and a place that I could look these minutes up? Because I'm sure they're part of a public record.
I'll be glad to answer that.
Thank you. I keep looking around.
I was one of the ones that got removed from the Pender EMS and Fire Board. No, they didn't.
They did not.
No, they did not.
Was there a reason that occurred? That they did not meet?
The ones that came up with the resolution.
And who would I ask? Okay, would you be able to respond to that, please? Sure, and I write things down because we get nervous when we stand up here in front of you. My question was, did the Board of Commissioners meet with the Pender EMS and Fire Board before moving forward with consolidation? And could you explain why that occurred or did not occur?
I can tell you based on my opinion.
Yes, sir.
I can't speak in my official capacity as to why I did it. But in my
As a commissioner, can you tell me why the commissioners did not do that?
I can't answer for the other commissioners. I can answer for myself
Okay, as a commissioner.
as a commissioner.
Okay,
I will tell
thank you.
That it appeared that there were no accountability. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Would you like to further?
What it means is we had a meeting between another department and Pender EMS and Fire, and there was a lot of finger pointing. Right? The finger pointing went. One specific individual kept saying, "My board, my board, my board."
Yes, sir.
Right? And it was me personally. I would take out if I were that person. I would say I would be willing to take that bullet, if you will. Right?
Okay.
Versus trying to throw everybody else under the bus and not do the right thing.
throwing anybody under the bus.
Oh, well.
Do you want to answer the question, Beverly?
I would like to.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Is this? I'll sit down and let you answer. Oh, I'll stay. Does not bother me.
To answer your question, he's referring to a meeting held in this room between Union Rescue and Pender EMS and Fire. When he was asking the chief of Pender EMS and Fire, which answers to his board of directors, he referred to his board of directors, which was sitting in the room. So he didn't like how Chief Baisden referred him to ask my board. I answer to my board. It was the right thing to do. He will go down with the ship, if that's what you're referring to.
I'm not throwing anybody under the bus.
Okay. All right. But no one ever came to Pender EMS and Fire and asked if they would like to merge. It was never brought to, it's been talked about for years and years, but nobody did this hostile takeover. I've worked there since 2008, and I was hoping to retire there, which is 3 years. So, thank you.
They've been talked about since 2013. What needs to be said? It's been talked about. I can't answer for my time prior. Maybe Brad can or Jerry can, but I just got here in December 2013 and talked and discussed.
So I came on board in February 2023, taking Dr. Tate's place when he stepped down. And up until March 10th of this year, it had not been talked about by the board that I was on. It has been talked about by previous boards of commissioners, and I work with one quite regularly. I've seen him twice today in my office. And the reason in the past that it has never been was because of the cost. As well as there's 100 counties in North Carolina, and only 2 other counties in North Carolina have this model. And every one of them has stated the reason why they've never done this is because of the cost. Durham County actually did it and reversed it a few years later because of the cost. So that's the reason why it was never talked about as it is now, because those commissioners that sat up there to make those decisions after that study was done in 2013 saw the study, did not see the benefits because, as been stated several times, the service is not going to change. The cost is going to change, and they've seen that, and that's why they, according to commissioners I've talked to from previous boards that this was brought to, discussed in the past, that's why they never moved on.
So then all of a sudden you guys decide to move on? Without any input from anywhere, just the 3 of y'all said, okay, let's do it. So the 3 of y'all.
I don't want to interrupt, but the people on the live stream cannot hear either one of our commissioners answering because we're not using the mics.
I can talk loud enough, they can hear me, honey. So 3 of y'all commissioners decided this for the Pender County public, and didn't bother to ask nobody's input, and you be damned what anybody else thought, or what it was gonna cost us all. I wanna know who in the God's name made y'all king? That Jesus is king, man. Y'all not. Y'all should have asked our opinion. Y'all smarter than that, we thought.
Let me jump in right here. The last county commissioner meeting we had 4 votes to move this forward. 4 votes. Okay?
I got the input off of one of them that said the only reason they voted for it was because of the employees getting some type of benefit that they were not getting any. I stopped, right after that vote, I was here, I stopped one of them, and that person went right up there and said something about it, that he'd already been questioned.
And I'll speak to it again if you want me to. Yes, I voted for the MOU that night.
He
And
said
I
because
have
of
voted,
employees.
I have voted against the merger. Not that I'm against the merger, I'm against the way that this merger's taking place. This should have been a methodical process and not a rushed process. Yes, it will benefit the employees of Pender EMS and Fire, which and everybody knows I have family that works there. It'll benefit all of them. Yes, their benefits will be better. But at what cost? That's the problem I have. At what cost? New Hanover County started their consolidation of services in 1991, Chief Fairway, around that point in time, when they took over the station on 421, when it shut down, when they couldn't run volunteers out there no more. That was their first paid station. Once they finished the station that's being built at the end of Palmer Lee Road right now, the Castle Haynes station, that closes that whole merger out. All right? That was 8 stations. We're taking over 13 stations in a year. If you don't think that's rushed, yes, we called in the chief consulting company or whatever they call them out of Raleigh. They have done mergers. They did the town of Waxhaw. You know, anybody know where Waxhaw's at? It's a little tiny town right outside of Charlotte. And they did Rhodesville. And they were both volunteer departments that became city departments. But they've also done 3 merger studies. And guess what? Those other 3 people are 2 merger studies. Guess what those other 2 places that they had do that do? They did not do it. So the reason I voted for the MOU that night is I seen all three renditions of the MOU from the first one to the third one. There was three that was sent to us. The first one did nothing for the employees, protect the employees of Pender EMS and Fire. Nothing. It was all for the county. The second one got a little better. And the third one, they claimed was the one that they could, all the stations, Pender EMS and Fire, and Maple Hill Fire Department, those employees agreed upon it. But I felt like they were satisfied with it, and it gave them some comfort and protection. Yes, I voted for it to move forward. Because if it's gonna happen, those people need protections. Because some of those people have put a lot of time and effort and a lot of their life and sweat and tears into that department. It's really personal to me because I was a volunteer fireman at Hampstead Fire Department from the time I was 15 years old. My wife's grandfather started Slough Point Fire Department. My wife's grandfather and her grandmother started Slough Point Rescue, which is now Pender, was Pender EMS and Fire. Now it is now Pender EMS and Fire. So this has this whole thing has a whole lot of personal to me, and to see it be torn apart by its vindictive measures, I have a problem with it. Yes. So I voted for the MOU to protect the employees that are currently at Pender EMS and Fire. And as it was mentioned, if you go back and Ms. Fulton made several references that this is an illegal binding document, which concerns me that that was said like 5 times, I think, after I went back and counted in that presentation. But yes, I did vote for it. I did not vote for the merger, as Commissioner Groves stated, but I did vote for the MOU to move forward.
So I understand that the consultants said this should be a 3 to 5 year plan, and you're doing it in a year? Can you
The
explain?
consultants have said that. And the guy, the ISO head guy, ISO at Maple Hill about 3 weeks ago also said that there was a chance that the Pender Fire District, EMS Fire District, there was a chance that it could change. He gave assurances to, and Chief Haraway's up there shaking his head because he must have heard it too.
I can speak to it.
He gave assurances to Maple Hill and Pender Lee that if they stayed current like they were, they would be all right. But the other remaining stations, there was a good possibility that they would change.
That was in shutdown?
No, not change, your ISO rating change. But when your ISO rating changes, it costs you more money than your insurance.
And my God, y'all pay enough now for insurance and taxes. We got insurance and tax forward. And I called our commissioner in our district and talked to him, asked him extensively about this merger. And he bluntly, my husband was listening, bluntly told me that it was a done deal, no ands, if, but, more or less it was a done deal. Did you not? So I went over and beyond and called my commissioners to try to get this thing reversed. Because the people don't want this, y'all, they don't want high taxes. They love their firefighters, their EMS fighters, people just like they were. They were all satisfied, they wasn't quitting and leaving. This shoving down our throat, a hostile takeover, you're not looking out after the constituents that put your butt in the chair you in. You're not looking out after none of us.
This is the first time that we've had the chance to have input on this process. We've been able to come up and talk from the lecture, but we got no answers back until now. This is the first input that the public has had, and that's not right. Far along these years are in the process, and we have not had any kind of input.
I disagree, sir.
I don't care if you disagree or not.
I'm just telling you.
Well, why would you disagree with that?
We all got cell phones. She called me. Anybody can call me, but our cell phone numbers are on the website.
I emailed you.
Did I email you back?
Yeah,
Okay.
done deal. Pretty much, done deal.
Well, that's not
You gotta
offering
reply.
an opportunity to
That's not.
discuss.
Did you ask to meet with her? Yes or no?
No, I didn't ask you.
Okay.
Because your answer was so final that I figured that you said anyways you were
Okay.
gonna change.
But you didn't
And that's not a public forum. It's a little bit different answering those questions in a room full of people.
But it's a done deal, that's what it's gonna take. Because God knows, I talked to the man over an hour now we're having to do a reactive, because you didn't go proactive. You didn't bother to ask us our opinions. So now you're taking, y'all want to, some of you want to whine and cry because we're coming down you so hard. Well, by golly, y'all grown ups. This is the job you signed up for. We are your constituents. You're supposed to be helping, looking out for the whole people of Pender County. Not just like some fly off of the wing, of some willy-nilly thing y'all want to throw up in there.
I think we have another question.
No, it's fine. Just a follow-up to removing members of the Fire and EMS Board. So we don't have I'm looking for a reason why people were taken off that board and replaced with commissioners. Do the commissioners have like a special knowledge of fire and EMS that made them more qualified to be on that board than the existing members? Commissioners. I mean, do y'all have special knowledge of fire and EMS that makes you more qualified than the folks who were already on, or who were sitting on the board at the time?
If I'm not mistaken, I think bylaws, Chief Fairway, you may know, states that the county is authorized or designated to assign 5 commissioners to that board.
Okay, and
One.
one, okay. And how many commissioners are still on that board? 3. Okay, is that a conflict of interest at this point?
One, because we voted to replace Commissioner Springers with a citizen, by unanimous vote at Hampstead a couple months ago.
And the attorney overturned that because it wasn't a formal written resignation put in.
So now there's 2 left on there, Commissioner?
Is that, at this point, since we're moving forward with the merger, is that not a conflict of interest for commissioners to be on that board?
I'm sorry,
Is it now a conflict of interest for the commissioners to still be on that board, moving forward with a merger that,
not according to council, and we removed ourselves during the budget.
so you're not on that board anymore?
We removed ourselves from approving their budget.
And then we're back on.
And then we're back on.
Okay, so not a conflict of interest in your opinion?
Now all 3 of you back on it.
Two of you, so you and,
Commissioner Springer, I have a question from the chair. As the assistant chief of the organization, I have sent letters to the interim county manager. I've sent letters to the county attorney twice. I've had our attorney send letters 3 times. To no avail have I ever received an answer. The only person that's answered me was Ms. Fulton and Commissioner George, who both just stated you were voted off unanimously off our board. There is nothing in that meeting's minutes that state the attorney overturned anything. The only thing in that in those minutes is that you were taken off our board. And so if in fact there's been an overturned vote, I would like written notification to our president of our board so that we can continue doing business, because currently we can't do business legally per our attorney because we can't get written clarification as to who's on our board.
Meg, can you get with Trey and figure that out? You need a reply back by a certain time.
I really need it by October 15th so we can have a board meeting, because we've got personnel issues that we need to discuss, but we've been holding up because we can't get any clarification.
So you've emailed the county manager's office and ain't got a response?
I've emailed the county manager's office. We've emailed your county attorney 3 times from our attorney's office, and our attorney called your county attorney and talked to him on the phone, and we still haven't received a clarification.
Do we have anyone else with questions?
I'm really confused. Reports have indicated that some fire and rescue departments will be exempt from this consolidation. Is that true? Rocky Point I think was an example given at one time. So what communities other than Rocky Point, if there are more, and what specific criteria was used to make this? I mean, how come they don't, why aren't they participating?
I can't answer that question, but I had the same question because in actuality, Rocky Point was the only station in the county that wasn't adhering to the contract. They were not incorporated and they lost their nonprofit at the time that decision was made. And it's been, they took 3 years. And they're a completely volunteer department with paid staff, just as Pender EMS and Fire is paid staff. And Maple Hill is paid part-time staff, and so it's been delivered. So I have those same questions, so when you get the answer out.
Okay, I'd be glad to share with you if I can get it.
Yeah, how about the other two? Y'all got an answer?
What specific criteria was used?
The other thing about that is they're the only fire district that has part of their district is a 10 currently in the county, which they have the highest fire district. If you were doing this to improve services for everybody to be equal, wouldn't you give everybody equal? They're gonna pay the same fire tax, in my understanding, most likely. The people that are in 10 is gonna pay the same one. I got, currently I have a 3 or 4. So wouldn't you, if you were living in Rocky Point, you're paying the same taxes as somebody in Hampstead or Burgaw or, you know, just getting the others?
Well, I live in Burgaw and I'm paying, so
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
If you lived in Rocky Point, though, wouldn't you expect the same services, you're paying the same taxes?
yes.
I would too.
Okay, so the other two, y'all got an answer for why Rocky Point wasn't included?
Is it just Rocky Point? Am I wrong about that? Is it?
No fire, yes, ma'am.
As far as fire goes, yes, Rocky Point will be the only one that remains a volunteer department. And the
But
reason
not
for that
EMS?
is they didn't depend, they had their own staffing independent of the rest of the organization.
Okay.
They hired their own people directly.
So can I, and I'll mention that too, because I talked about it the night of the meeting that the decision was made. Rocky Point uses staffing of, part-time staff members. So they pull their staff members from Wilmington, New Hanover County, and Pender EMS and Fire. That's what staffs their station. I didn't know this until right before the meeting when a citizen of that district called me and said, hey, you know, when there is a natural disaster such as Florence, and all those paid firemen get deployed back to their station, that Rocky Point has no coverage. Or they have limited coverage with the 2 at the time volunteers they had there in Florence. So they don't have coverage if there is a natural disaster such as Florence, where all Pender EMS firemen went to their stations, all New Hanover County went to their stations, and when you depend on those to make up your staff, and your residents are short on staff.
So our, what it is, so the ones that's supposed to be covering our area, that might be our house on fire, is gonna have to leave our house burning and go at somebody that ain't got coverage, huh? Ain't right. Y'all need to get it together.
I'm more confused now than I was when I came up here.
The question remains, why was Rocky Point exempt?
Yeah.
$1.6 million.
It would have been an additional cost to hire those people full time. A significant additional cost. Where Pender EMS and Fire already has full time employees, Rocky Point would have to be.
They already are full-time with us, so you have to hire full-time staff.
Say that again.
I said the people that work there are part-time, so we just have to be a whole new full-time staff.
Right.
And that was the tipping point that went, okay, all of this money is fine, but that's too much. Is that kind of the gist?
And they were the only department that had been operating off of their fire tax so far.
That's the most hogwash I ever heard of. People quitting left and right, yet then you got to replace them and hire them. I hire more people in their place. That's the most hogwash I ever seen. Somebody, let me tell you something. Y'all need to go back to school.
Chief, can I ask you a question? What do you think about it? Do you think it's a good deal or not? And wanna make sure that you haven't been coerced by anybody with your answer.
Oh, I can assure you I've not been coerced.
Thank you, sir.
I've been doing this for 45 years. I've retired twice, and I'm a glutton for punishment. I will say this. A merger was probably inevitable at some point in time. Myself and Chief Baisden have talked about it for years, that it would probably occur at some point. Right now, Pender EMS and Fire, we don't have a plan of succession for our administrative staff. Most of us are senior personnel. However, I have done 3 mergers as fire chief in the past. I've been a fire chief for 19 years. I'm currently assistant chief of this organization, but I have been a fire chief. I can tell you on every one of those mergers, it took us anywhere from 3 to 15 years to successfully do it. The largest one I done was the town of Apex, North Carolina. It took 15 years to take and make that one come to fruition. North Carolina Fire Chief Consulting just finished the town of Garner. Garner ain't but 4 fire stations. Took them 3 years to do it. So my answer to your question is this. I'm looking out for my people, trying to look out for my people, trying to continue to serve the public with a mass exodus of employees who never wanted this to start with. The only group, there was a choice group of firefighters who contacted commissioners and said that we need something because our health insurance is too expensive. Well, the reason our health insurance is expensive, we're a private corporation of 200 employees. If you know anything about how health insurance works, it's based on the number of employees, the number of claims, and how much you spend. We've asked for more money, but we only get what is approved in the budget. We could do the same thing Pender County's doing. We could take and pay more. If we had more, we could add to our budget, and we could have met the same health insurance. We had a defined benefits plan that paralleled the North Carolina State Retirement Plan. However, we were forced to cut it off when this merger happened. We had to stop it because it was a federal government plan for our employees, and they make us stop it because it takes a year and a half to cut it off, close it out, and pay out our employees, which we'll have to pay them out in annuities. So we could have done everything this merger is doing. We could have stayed in business and we could have kept going. We won't give them that opportunity. As they said, they never came asked. They never gave the board a chance. They never asked the board. They didn't do anything. They placed themselves on our board so that they would hopefully have a majority vote on the board. But they never took and came and asked our board when we had experienced persons who were sitting on our board. We had retired chiefs of the volunteer rescue squads and volunteer fire departments of this county that went back years in the history of this county in public service and public safety. They took them all off. Now, right now I can tell you I'm working for my employees and for the community. And I'm trying to make this merger work. But I'm very concerned about the fact that we're doing something in less than a year that takes most communities 3 to 5 to 6 years. Or if you look at New Hanover County, which, as Commissioner George alluded to, they consolidated 8 fire departments, 8 stations. They started in 1991. I know this because at the time I was in Wilmington and I helped get the first station consolidated. But look how long it took them. They are just now finishing it. They just had the anniversary not 6 months ago that they were finally finished with the merger for New Hanover County Fire Services as a whole. If you've seen the task list that they talked about in this slide, imagine an Excel spreadsheet with 27 tabs at the bottom of it. And each one of those tabs having 50 items that's got to be accomplished. That's what our task list is. We got to get all those I's dotted and all those T's crossed before we can ever take and make this thing come to fruition. And we got to do it by June 30th.
Sounds impossible to me to do it right.
I've often wondered that. But
I don't think there's anybody in this room that don't want your people to be treated right, with fair salaries, compared to everybody around us, counties around us. I certainly do. I mean, these people are God sent.
That's right. When you need them.
We love them, they're God sent. God knows what we would do.
Well, I can tell you
Farmers.
what you had, and I used the word had, because I talked with North Carolina Office of EMS just the other day. And the chief of Office of EMS for the state of North Carolina told me this. Pender County was a model EMS agency 6 months ago. 6 months ago. And they were recognized and they were told, and we were utilized by other agencies to say this is what we want to be. Pender EMS and Fire. Problem is now I've lost, today makes 40 employees since March 1st. 40 employees. And I'm doing everything in my power to keep them. But, like I say, they didn't want this to start with. They liked what they were doing. They were happy. We had a good company. We had a company that took care of its employees. We had a company that maintained perks for our employees as a private organization. And to this day, can't nobody, including the legal staff that we have hired, tell me how in the world a county can come in and overrun a sovereign company and put us out of business. It's no different than Waste Management, who picks up trash around Burgaw. It's no different than if they'd have went in and said, hey, we're going to take all your trash cans away. Only difference is they're taking your fire trucks and your ambulances. Now, back to your original question. I am supporting this merger, just as Commissioner George said, for the fact that I've got 200 employees that look to me every day for a job. And they want to continue to do what they're doing. So I'm supporting it for that, just so they'll continue to be able to do that and serve in their county. But I really think it's being done too fast. And I think it could be slowed down and done more methodically. And if it was, it would probably be done in a better manner for all concerned.
Why, from you two commissioners, I've heard from Commissioner George, why the precipitous nature of this? Why now? And why not move more slowly? And why the power play with packing the board? Why? What's the motive? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'll answer that the best I can. But let's go back to the Hampstead meeting. Who was at the Hampstead meeting? The last Hampstead meeting?
Not the last one.
None of y'all. Where were you at?
We live in Burton, the county seat.
Where were you at?
I was online.
Okay, dear, okay, let me talk. I'm talking.
So was I.
At that meeting, I made a statement. I said, if I see where this thing is not going to work out, I'll pull my support. And I'm still holding on to that. If I see where it doesn't work, I'll pull my support. To go back to the gentleman's question, 80% of my people that voted for me wanted this. We've got 35 people. Let me talk. We got 35 people in this audience right now, 35 or 40. We got 70,000 in Pender County. I know 80% wanted this to happen sometime. People that I talked to, I'm talking. And I won every precinct. And I don't care what that paper prints, it's not going to change me. I'm the same person. And y'all sit there and laugh, but I'm the same person. Same person. There's 70,000 people, and now we got 30. Where were y'all at? Years ago, the podium was here. Where were y'all at? The podium was here. It never moved. Thank you.
You didn't ask the people. Y'all didn't ask the people. That's where we were at, because we didn't think we had to be concerned about people that we voted for up there trying to do us in.
If you want to ask me a question, go to the podium.
I want to finish mine if I may. Who, other than Rocky Point, are there other groups or entities that are not going to be a part of this? Union. And was that because of money as well? Or they have their own, or what?
They're going to be hiring their own part-time staffing to staff their trucks.
Thank you.
Mr. Groves, I've got a question. Where do you get the figure of 80%?
Ma'am, I ran my campaign. I ran an independent campaign, and I talked to people, and I won every precinct.
So
That's where I get to 80%.
So
You didn't run my campaign, and you weren't with me, not 1 minute. Thank you.
I understand that, but this, I'm talking about this one issue. Like, the fact that you won by 80% is not the same thing as saying 80% of the people agree with this merger. That's a different thing.
I'm done with my question, my answer. I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you all night. That's why I didn't really want to come. I'm not gonna argue with you. But I know what people wanted when I talked to them. And it was inevitable. It was coming. And we'll see if it'll work. If y'all wouldn't fight it so hard, it would already worked.
Do we have additional questions? And again, if you could come to the microphone when you have questions, people on the live stream can't hear anything.
I have just a quick question. You had all the consultants, or you hired consultants, correct, to check with this? And I was just wondering if you have released the reports and the timelines from those consultants to the public.
So there was a fire study done several years ago, and that report is separate from this. These consultants were hired to help facilitate a process. They didn't necessarily do an evaluation and deliver a report. They're facilitating the process from now through the end.
So you're paying them, but we don't have data from them? Is that what you're saying?
We're paying them for a service to facilitate the process at the request of Pennery Mess and Fire.
Okay, well, did they recommend that you facilitate this process in a year's time, or have they recommended the 3 to 5 years or more that
They have seen them take longer, yes. But we verified with them that they understood that it would be doable in a year, and they indicated that that was such.
So you pretty much told them that it would be in a year?
I didn't tell them anything.
Well, I mean, I
did ask them, yes.
Who is them?
The consultants.
Okay.
My question is, the current board that is Pender Fire and EMS, how many people are actually on that board? And are any of those people citizens, or is it all commissioners and maybe professionals? Are there any citizen voices being heard through any of this?
Yes, ma'am. We don't have as many citizens as we used to, but we do still have a couple of citizen representatives. Our board is actually made up of employees from our EMS division, our fire division, citizen representatives, and then the way our bylaws are written, the commissioners have the authority to appoint certain representatives as well. However, they changed that this year when they appointed initially 3, then 2, and now we're just trying to get clarity as to whether we have 1 or 2. But that's how our board's made up.
Who decides who the citizens are that get to sit on the board? Is it a
It's-
vote amongst yourselves, or is it appointed by the commissioners?
No, it's, we actually put it out for the public.
Yes, yes.
So that.
I applied.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Multiple
and we
times.
Had, and we had several applicants, that, unfortunately did not get picked, but
Yeah.
I have our president here, and I will let her take and speak more to,
Great.
the bylaws of the board.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah, sure. The curiosity just is the whole of the citizenship
The citizens are
representative?
appointed,
Yeah.
okay, the citizens would be appointed by your county commissioners.
Right. Yeah. So there's no citizens appointed by other citizens or by.
No,
Not
you're
by-
sit-
no,
no,
not
you're
We're
by
appointed
independent
by the
vote.
commissioners who are now trying to do a hostile takeover.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
they're gonna appoint the people that they want, not necessarily the people that the people want, is the point.
Yes,
Or
there,
that
yeah,
maybe
there's no independent
neutral parties
appointees.
want. There's no independent people on
Appointees,
this
no.
board. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I sat back there and you told me to come to the thing if I want to talk to you. You looked at my husband, Lewis, the guy you grew up with and went to school with, and told him, Jerry, that the firefighters and EMS came to y'all and asked y'all for this merger. That all of them came to y'all. But yeah, so, and when I asked you, I looked at you and I said, why are so many of them quitting and leaving? And you shut up. And now you want to say that your voters are asking you to do this. So what story is it?
You got all the answers, you tell me.
That's what you did. You said. Boy, you're a trip, ain't you? I tell you, y'all shoving this stuff down our throat, and I hope everybody remembers it come election time. So that's what I got to say, unless I think something else out there. And so tell me something. If it wasn't for this merger, you'd rather have it like it was. But since they shoving this merger down your throat, then you got to work with what they're shoving on you. Is that what it is?
Yes, ma'am, pretty much. I am trying to take and make the best of a bad situation.
If that don't tell y'all something, my God, blind as a bat can see more better than that. Jesus.
What I want to know is, has the state of North Carolina approved the enrollment of the proposed number of EMS and fire staff members into the state and local insurance and retirement systems? Has that approval happened?
Yes, if they become employees, they will be added to the state and local government retirement system.
So where could we find the documentation, the approvals, estimated premiums for the employees, and a comparison of their current benefits versus the county benefits?
I have some rough calculations based on averages, average salaries, and average, the basic plan and then the family plan. The rates are what they are for everyone. The rates wouldn't change. The rates are available on the state treasurer's website for both the local government retirement system and for the state health plan.
And how about documentation of the approvals from
They
the
would have
state?
to become employees first.
Oh, so they are not approved by the state yet?
Yes, we've talked to the state and local government retirement system and the state health plan. They will allow them into it.
Oh, okay.
Just like any other new employee that we have.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody's pretty keyed up, and I don't blame them. I am too. But Sarah, I want to thank you for at least giving some clarification on the budget analysis and all, because we really didn't have any information on that at all. But I have a concern. It seems to me that in the school bond, didn't that have in their provisions for the school bus garage? And now why do we have all the extra?
Correct. Initially, it did, and that there are still some bond funds available for future projects, funding permitted for the school bonds.
I don't know that that's answering it, but
Do what? Well, this is debatable. I mean, the answer is the school that we're currently building costs more than it initially was projected to cost. So there are less funds available for future projects. What future projects get funded of those projects is to be determined.
so none of those funds are going to be used from the school bond to pay for the garage. Is that what you're saying?
Not if we build it from the general fund, no.
Okay. And Mr. Groves, you have never asked me anything. I don't believe you've asked any of our neighbors either in our neighborhood how we would feel about this merger for the fire and EMS, but I appreciate you thinking for me ahead.
You're talking about a 20-year friend there now. 20 years.
I got one more
And
question
y'all letting
here.
the devil tear y'all apart, every one of you.
Can the county clarify its most recent audit outcomes and any limitations on credit or purchasing authority that might affect funding for this merger?
Yes, so I'm assuming you're talking about the unit assistance list letter that was referred to. We've been on that list since about 2015 for various reasons along the way. At this point, we've resolved what issues they had, and we're in a waiting pattern to get off of that list.
All right, and in terms of our latest audit, is that going to curtail our ability to borrow or incur debt?
It should not. No, the level of this debt is not such that it would affect our bond rating, if that's your question. It also is possible that some of the debt that we're looking at could either be paid off or refinanced once we transition.
So the fact that we have had failed audits doesn't affect our
We've
ability?
never had a failed audit.
Never?
No.
Really? Okay. Thank you.
Lane Greenwood. I'm an engineer for Penry Mess and Fire, Ladder 16 B shift. I can't speak for everyone in the department. I can only speak for the fire division. 100% of the fire division does want this merger to happen. There's some individuals that want it done the right way. We all want it done the right way. I think with the animosity between the county, our department, our divisions within the department, things won't go smoothly with animosity. We all have to work together for this to happen. And fire personnel that have left, they haven't left because of the merger. They've left because they want better benefits. They want better pay. We have a lieutenant that currently just took a job elsewhere because he can't afford to pay for the insurance for his family. I just wanted to clear those things up.
That ain't what we've already been saying.
Are there any other questions? I know it's already 8:30. We do have more. I was going to say we have time for 2 or 3 more questions. I just don't want to keep everyone here till 2 o'clock in the morning or something. So you can come on up.
is it possible to merge fire and not EMS?
It is possible.
Yeah.
That's not
All
what's,
except for Rocky Point, right?
that's not what's in front of us, but that is possible.
Okay.
Anyone else? There are 4 more town hall meetings that will be held. So if you think of a question tonight when you get home, there are 4 more opportunities. Anybody? Okay.
I got it. Let
I
me
ju-
say one thing. I thank everybody for coming. I appreciate it. I wish you'd have come 3 years ago, but anyway, I'm talking. I thank you for coming, and I did sign up for it. I sure did.
Y'all kept it hush hush and did it under the table behind our back.
Remember who you work for. You're supposed to be a public servant, not an ass.
So just to remind everyone again, I know y'all are tired of me telling you to fill out the strategic plan survey, but I'm going to keep saying it until the public engagement period is over, because I have about 45 surveys and 70,000 people live here. So the strategic plan, again, the next 4 town halls, the 5:30 to 7 o'clock portion is the strategic plan. You can come, you can look at the priorities that we've identified, the strategies and actions that our work groups have identified. There's over 65 people that have worked on those. You can ask all the questions, take the survey. I will talk to you until I'm blue in the face about the strategic plan. And then again, we will be doing the emergency services merger presentation at the next 4 town halls as well, and those portions do start at 7. Yes, ma'am.
Where is the survey online?
Yes, so the survey, there's a link on the website. It's on Facebook. I have flyers all over the place with the QR code. If you want to take the QR code, I have some paper copies if you want to fill out a paper copy, and I'll input it manually if you want. I will, however you want to take the survey, you can take the survey. So if no one else has anything, I do appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Our meeting tomorrow is at Heidi Trask High School, and it'll be the same schedule. 5:30 will be the strategic plan input, and then 7 o'clock will be the emergency services merger conversation.
So that concludes the merger part. Is there any questions that you have for commissioners other than the merger part? Because this was supposed to be an all-inclusive town hall where you could ask us pretty much whatever you had to ask us, I guess. So if anybody's got questions for me, I'll be here to answer. We don't have to all go home yet. Yes, ma'am. Several years. Remedy? I think we should, because we worked in our statute, but for 4 years we've been late with our tax bills. I guess. The general statute says they have to be mailed out 60 days prior to June 6th. So or tells us when they're supposed to go out. By September 1st is when they're supposed to go out, but they're not late due according to the state unless they're sent out 60 days prior to, within 60 days of the June 6th. So we're late, but we're not late, which is kind of like the state likes to do a lot. They like to, but yeah, they keep yeah, you can go online, and actually this year we actually have a merchant fee that's affordable. So if you would rather pay with a check or debit card, the rates aren't as bad as they were in the past. So that did come down. Huh? Checks are the cheapest. So if you do a direct draft from your account, it's cheaper. It's what, $1? How much is it, Meg? $1? $1.95. So that's about the price of a stamp now. You're welcome.